Hey all you cool cats and kittens, Kalle Beck here from StartingStrongman.com, bringing you another episode of the Strong Talk podcast, and today I'm going to talk about deadlift world records and all of the whatever you want to call it that comes with it. I wanted to ease off on this topic and not bring it up because to me it's been rather annoying, but here we are. I figured if Zydrunas Savickas is going to weigh in his opinion, surely I should too, right? Sarcasm. A little bit of backstory. Hafthor Bjornsson was going to be lifting at World's Ultimate Strongman Bahrain to try to deadlift 501 kilos. He was going to be paid $100,000 if he did so. Now the entire world is went upside down and there's no contest. You can't travel internationally. I'm pretty sure Bahrain's on complete lockdown. As is Iceland, I believe. It's a different world with different sets of rules out there, and there's no sports. There's no baseball. There's no basketball. There's definitely no strongman. There's no amateur strongman, and we don't know when it's going to be normal again. So these are not normal circumstances. And I think promoters and athletes are trying to still survive and put out a product and put on a show and give something to the fans for them to look forward to. Do I think these should necessarily be world record attempts that are happening? No, I think there'd be a way to do it with a whole lot less controversy, and I'd rather you see kind of like a head-to-head with two different people in two different gyms, like let's say Robert Oberst and Luke Stoltman both did a 350-pound log for reps, and it was like a showdown. I think that would get not as much attention as someone trying to deadlift 501 kilograms to have the heaviest deadlift of all time. You know, here we are, and that's not what's going on. And you have to remember that there are also other records that, or lifts, whatever you want to call them, that World's Ultimate Strongman is putting on. Hello. So, of course, we have the 501 kilogram world record deadlift attempt by Hafthor Bjornsson on May 2nd, which is being judged by Magnusson and commentated remotely by Lawrence Shaw. And on the 16th of May, we have Luke Stoltman going for a log lift world record attempt. On May 23rd, we have Tom Stoltman trying to break his own record on the Atlas Stone for max weight. On May 30th, we have Alexei Novikov going for a 100-kilogram giant dumbbell for reps. And on June 6th, we have Rhiannon Lovelace attempting an Atlas Stone world record attempt, which I believe is for a middleweight female record attempt, which is, 305 or 330 pounds, somewhere around there. All the controversy is on the deadlift, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's 1 out of 5 lifts that are being contested over the next, upcoming month-ish, putting entertainment out for fans, all for free. World's Ultimate Strongman is doing. But the only one no one's talking about those other 4. It's just the deadlift. And why? Because the deadlift is all that matters in strongman. We all know that, right? Again, sarcasm. But that's kind of what's turned into, and I've been saying for years, I love a good record attempt. And the issue is that if we put more emphasis on world records being attempted or broken than on people winning full contests, then individual lifts are going to matter more than the sport of strongman. And the sport of strongman is not doing one lift for max weight. The sport of strongman is being the best all-around strength athlete. And of course, everyone's going to have their differing opinions on what that constitutes of and what is more impressive than what, and that's exactly why we're having this argument right now. Brian Shaw said that having it done in your own gym is going to open Pandora's box, and in my opinion, Pandora's box was already opened in 2016 when the Deadlift World Championship overshadowed Europe's Strongest Man. And now Giants Live and others it's huge. Strongman has grown so much since 2016, and I think record attempts are a big part of that. And that's what I think record attempts are good for, is to bring more eyeballs and new people into the sport because it's a record. It's newsworthy. It's easier for the person who's not familiar with the ins and outs of what's a faster farmer's walk and how technical is a circus dumbbell and stuff, but they're like, oh, that's the heaviest thing ever picked up. That's the heaviest stone. That's the most weight a log is pressed overhead. It's a lot simpler, and it brings people in that aren't necessarily huge strongman fans. And we've seen that happen. The sport has exploded in the past 5 years, and I think all these record attempts are a big, and being broken are a big part of that. Because of, promoters see that as success and strongman as a business, there's been more emphasis on, oh, damn, how are we going to get people to buy tickets for the show? How are we going to get people to watch this? How are we going to get, media to cover it? We have to figure out a record to be set at that show. We've seen, between the Arnold putting up 50 grand and then World's Ultimate Strongman putting up 100 grand and then the Arnold putting up 101 grand to deadlift 501 kilos. We've seen this pissing match of promoters kind of forcing records down our throat because it makes them money and gets them attention and gets them huge exposure. It works, but they overshadow the whole show. Pandora's box isn't how records are set or where they're set, in what conditions. It's records in general, and that's done, and maybe it was for the best. I mean, strongman's a lot bigger in the last 5 years. More people are making a living at it. With that said, let's go back to the specifics of the 501 world record attempt. I don't think this is going to cause where no one goes to shows, no one shows up to the arena, no one goes to the Arnold Classic, and everyone just stays in their home gyms and tries to break records on a live stream with a couple of their friends. I think anyone given the, opportunity to lift in front of 10,000 people in an arena or do it in their home gym is going to pick to do it in the arena. When Eddie Hall broke the 500 kilogram deadlift record, I was the first person in journalism to write an article about it, and it was on flowelite.com. Unfortunately, now everything on Flow Elite's behind a paywall, so whatever, but it's on. I recapped it on my YouTube again, and I said it was the greatest feat of strength in history. I thought it was amazing. I have nothing against Eddie Hall. He broke a barrier of deadlifting 500 kilograms, and if he had never done that, we still wouldn't be talking about 500. We'd be going, oh, can someone deadlift 465 or 470, and it would just be being chipped away. Him doing it by, 36 kilograms, breaking his own world record, is just, that's unheard of to shatter a world record by then. And I watched it live, it was exciting, and I think Thor would want a similar experience in front of a bunch of people to do that if given the choice. But the current situation in the world with the coronavirus and shutdowns and everything being turned up down is we have a whole lot less choices than before, and there's not going to be any perfect solution to how to keeping, I don't think Hafthor needs the money, but I think, Luke and Tom Stoltman and Alexei Novikov, I don't think that, they're exactly millionaires, and I know the Stoltman brothers both quit their jobs, and they're kind of banking on being able to go to shows, getting paid appearance fees to go to expos, and all of that's went away. So, so everyone has to make a living, and if they're going to make a couple bucks from World's Ultimate Strongman, and World's Ultimate Strongman is going to put on some event that fans like you and I can watch for free, I think that's great. Should it be considered a world record? I'm not going to have judgment on that until we actually see it happen. It could look like a Mickey Mouse show and be completely absurd and can look like and be like, there's no way that's credible, but it hasn't happened. We don't know. It could look, they could do it in such a professional manner that it leaves almost no doubt for anyone except for the, the people that are so set in their ways and their opinion can't change on that subject, like opinions on anything are. So I'm going to reserve judgment until it actually happens. And what if he misses? If he misses, this is going to be one of the stupidest controversies in sports of all time. So let's worry about how credible it is until we have something to judge that on. There's just a bunch of assumptions at this point. What we do know, it's going to be judged by Magnus ver Magnusson, 4 times world's strongest man, probably been referee of more big strongman events than just about anyone in strongman history. Yes, he's Icelandic, just like Hafthor. Yes, he used to train Hafthor, but from what I understand, I don't think that they're the best of friends. They live in Iceland, which is what, like 200,000-300,000 people? When's the last time you saw them in a gym together? Pretty small country. Think there's a lot of strongman gyms? From what I understand, they had some sort of falling out. So I don't think Magnus is going to have any favoritism on Thor. I think it's actually the other way around. I think he's going to judge Thor harder than he would other people. That's my opinion. I've been judged by Magnus ver Magnusson when I competed at the Arnold Amateur World Championship, and I remember other, some of my peers that were competing happy that they were in his lane in an event when I had been judged by him the previous year, and I went, thank God I'm not being judged by Magnus right now, because he is the strictest. I would almost say he's a dick. How strict he is if you're the competitor. Just local, judge. In my lane, and I deadlift in my deadlift medley, I pick it up. He says down right away. I do it, and I remember one of my friends did this deadlift, and he ramped and hitched, and it was one of the ugliest deadlifts you've ever seen. And he was fighting it for probably a good 5 seconds, and a 5-second deadlift is ugly. We all know that. And he finally locked it out, and Magnus was looking at him, and I watched the video, and you can see the look of disgust in Magnus's face, that he had to give the down on such an ugly deadlift. He wishes he couldn't, even though he technically lifted by the rules. By Magnus's standard, it shouldn't have counted, even if the rules were that show that you could deadlift it any way you want. And he made him, this guy grinded out this lift for, it could have been 20 seconds. I don't know. Let's just exaggerate. This is strongman, right? We exaggerate about everything. And he finally gave him the down, I've never seen a judge in any sport hate to make a decision more than doing that. Magnus is the guy that didn't count Eddie's deadlift because he dropped it at the top, right? I think a lot of other judges, even though that was with the rules, would have let that happen just because judges get excited in the moment, and Magnus for Magnusson is not that guy. So if there's any judge that I'm going to take as it being credible if something is done in a home gym in their own conditions, using their own plates and their own bars, etc., it is Magnus ver Magnusson. Again, whether this one should count, let's wait till it actually happens and see the actual conditions on it was and judge it from there. Zydrunas Savickas just put out a good video that you should watch on this subject, and he said, there's no one governing body in strongman, and I think that's great. There's problems to it because we have issues like this on what is a record, what isn't, but we've already had these discussions when it was being done in competition, like should an elephant bar count, should a barbell deadlift count, should there's so many deadlift records because strongman is not standardized. Like Z said, there's one federation that tried to standardize strongman, and they lasted for a very few short years. IFSA, International Federation Strongman Association, or whatever it was. They had these shiny stainless steel aluminum implements. They were all the same. They counted records. They had IFSA spec equipment, which you might still see used when people are selling stuff. And generally, when they're saying that, it looks nothing like the IFSA stuff that was used at the time. I've even deadlifted on one of the IFSA bars when I did a show for Ode Haugen because he bought half of it because IFSA went bankrupt and and someone sold off a lot of their equipment and Ode Haugen bought some of it. And I've looked at the Shield and that stuff was cool, but I don't think anyone other than hardcore strongman fans cared about IFSA at all. The athletes liked it. I think Zydrunas has a big fondness for it. I think it helped because it made, it put some competition against World's Strongest Man until it folded. But strongman's supposed to be varied. So, there's the Hummer tire deadlift, there's the elephant bar deadlift. The funny matter of the fact is that the only, all of these federations keep their own set of records. The circus dumbbell record, just all around circus dumbbell record, is Mateusz Kieliszkowski did 350 pounds, whatever that is in kilos, that's 150-ish. And the Rogue record is 320 or 330, 325, whatever it is, right? So those are two different records. Rogue doesn't recognize that other record. Just like if Hafthor does this 501 world record attempt and does it, I guess it'll be a World's Ultimate Strongman record, but I can almost guarantee that Giants Live and World's Strongest Man aren't going to recognize it. And the funny thing is, the only place I know of that keeps just an all-around, all-time, regardless of federation record, or at least the first person to do it in recent history, is me on StartingStrongman.com. So maybe I'm to blame for all of this. And I just want to say, I'm not going to get into too much specifics on each person, but I think I don't like how either side has handled the situation, and it's promoted it. Yeah, there's been a lot of stuff. There's hypocrisy on both sides. I don't think Thor should have brought up stuff from 2017. That's all in the past. He's won since then. Just, whatever. You could say whatever you want about it, but it looks petty. Stuff Eddie said, who he's apologized for, is, embarrassing. And, there's lots of double standards. There's been clear, there's been concise efforts to set up world records attempt to favor certain athletes all over, from different federations, with a sandbag over bar. Is a pretty good event, an easy one to set a record for some athletes, and then other athletes, it could be a circus dumbbell. Oh, we have Kielishkowski at this show. Let's do a circus dumbbell. They know almost no one else is going to do it, even if anyone else is invited. And from what I understand, World's Ultimate Strongman gave the same opportunities to any other strongman that wanted to do this. Records having more credence than international titles is the real issue. And if we're opening Pandora's box, I think that happened in 2016 when we had record shows get involved, records get involved in the full shows. And the worst part of all of this is it has kind of thrown the whole, understanding that strongman's a whole brothership, and they support each other more than anything, because we're not used to seeing fighting like this in strongman, and it's went on through the years, but kind of people kept it beyond closed doors. I think if it was anyone else than Thor going for it, Eddie wouldn't have as much of a problem. They just have big problems, and it's kind of drugged the whole sport into their own personal beef that's went on for a long time. And I think they're showing that there's kind of like a couple camps in strongman, trying to stay in the middle as good as anyone can. I have personal friends all over the sport and had arguments with them about this, but we're still friends, and I hope everyone can remain friends. And if you hate what I say, it's just my opinion. Personally, I think this is all a big work, and it's somewhat contrived and fake for that upcoming boxing match they said they have. And I think that's even worse than if it was real, because if that's true, they're kind of selling out the whole sport for one payday to see two people do a sport that they're not even known for. Hopefully I'm wrong. Anyways, I'm Kalle Beck. Thanks for watching. If you like what I say and do, then hit subscribe. And go to StartingStrongman.com, and I'm going to try to focus more on helpful training tips and how to train, around all of these crazy times, and helping people get introduced to the sport, which is why I started Starting Strongman in the first place.